even after all these years, marriages still work. You can't just become complacent. And so we have to find that time for each other, which sometimes even now is still difficult. It doesn't necessarily have to be going on a date all the time. It could just be going to bed at the same time together and just chatting and talking about how the day and stuff went and things like that.
You're listening to With You Podcast, where we talk about real relationships and life transitions. I'm David.
And I'm Tara, and this season we'll be exploring marriage.
Yeah, we'll be hearing couples tell their stories from different ages, stages, and backgrounds.
And we all have a lot to learn from each other, so let's get started.
We're so happy to have Moses and Chaka with us today. We're doing a new series on marriage and hearing stories about marriage and learning from others rather than just Tara and I talking nonsense. We're wanting to learn from others of how to live well together in deep, meaningful relationships.
Yeah, so we're really excited that you guys are with us. Thank you for spending some time on your weekend with us. So we're going to ask you first to introduce yourselves so everybody knows who we're talking to. So why don't you tell us who you are and how long you've been married and a little bit about your family?
How long have we been married?
This November was 17 years of marriage.
17 years.
Yes. High school sweethearts. And so almost 22, I think. Yeah, 22 years together. We have 2 children. They are 14 and 12. Javen is our oldest. He's in high school this year. And Layla is in middle school in 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade.
It changes every year.
I know, I have to think about it, because they're changing they're talking about the next year. I am a birth and postpartum doula and a newborn care specialist. And I've been doing that for about almost 9 years.
And your name?
Oh, I am Chaka Quadra. I almost forgot that part.
The most important part.
Yes.
And then you?
And I'm Moses Guillermo Quadra. I work for an online college and part-time at Lowe's.
Okay.
And just life. Yeah.
And Moses, how did you learn about marriage? Like what things did you see about marriage before even getting into being married to Chaka? Kind of what were the lessons, what were the things you observed from family and friends about marriage?
I think so I was an only child for almost 16 years, almost 17 years actually. My parents so both my parents are from a different country. So my mom's from Mexico, my dad's from Nicaragua. But the culture there is women are very they're not the head of the household and they're submissive. They basically, take care of all the chores and so forth.
So there's clear guidelines in terms of men do certain things in the family, women do other things in the family.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's very apparent with my extended family. But my parents, though, they don't really, my mom does some of those things, but they were, growing up, it was almost 50-50, to some extent. Maybe not 50-50, maybe 60-30 or yeah.
Whatever.
40.
Numbers.
It all, there was,
and the other 10% went to somebody else.
That's why you have
true.
That's why you have children. The other 10%.
Yeah.
That's pretty much, yes.
So with my parents, my exposures were they did it together, and it wasn't always one person making the decisions. Although mostly it seemed like it was my dad making the decisions, but my mom also had a lot of input. It just wasn't what my dad said.
So it was a partnership.
So it was a partnership, and they were very affectionate people. So when we would go out, they would hold hands. They would kiss and they would hug. They were affectionate people. So those are like the influences that I've had in what marriage was. Not so much should be, but that's just what my exposure.
Yeah, that's a lot of the times that's our default mode, kind of thinking of kind of computers coming out of the box. I love kind of unboxing new things, and my computer has like a way it does things, and you can modify
Settings.
settings and you can modify it. But our out of the box settings are really kind of what you just said, Moses, of kind of the families we grew up in and what we saw is what the default is. How did they kind of do things differently from their cultural background?
Um, a lot. My dad is very independent, and so just going off of my dad, he wasn't someone that ever viewed my mom as having to. There'd be a lot of times where he would cook and clean. I mean,
Hmm.
they cleaned together.
Mm.
They would cook
Oh,
together.
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Um,
how about that?
Mhm.
there were, I think almost every household has it. Like, I don't know, you just have jobs that are kind of just not, they're set in stone, I
Yeah.
guess, Like for instance, like taking the garbage out, I think most males take the garbage out. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they do the outside work, like cutting the grass, I think. I don't know if those are just not stereotypes, but those are just things that get repeated so often in what we watch on TV and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they had some set responsibilities, but for the most part, they were interchanging on a lot of things. So like someone would in the bathroom one time, someone would do it other times. So they split a lot of the things.
Taking care of the kids,
Yeah, yeah, that
things
was
like that.
well, my dad did. My dad worked a lot, um, so I spent a lot more time with my mom than I did with my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, his affections towards me were different. It's not that he raised me to be like the man's man, but he wasn't as affectionate towards me. Now he is, but that's a different topic. But uh, with my mom, he was always affectionate. Hugs, kisses,
Mm.
compliments. But yeah, it was definitely.
So you observed that your whole growing up, that affection
Yes.
between them. That's cool. And what about you, Shaka? What did you observe about marriage and your parents and other family members?
So mine was a little different. My parents weren't the affectionate type. Not, I mean, towards each other in front of us. I don't know why, but they just weren't. But to us, they were very affectionate. Like we knew we were loved. We were constantly told, how much they love us and things like that. It was a very structured family dynamic where like we always ate together. We had lots of, like prayer together, things like that were daily parts of our lives. As far as chores and things like that went, it was equal for the most part. I mean, it was all girls in the household, and my dad, he would talk to my boy cousins differently, obviously, than he would us. So we always questioned how he would treat a son, as far as like gender roles and things like that. But my dad, he did laundry, he cooked and cleaned, and things like that. They both worked out of the household, and so chores and stuff were done um, between everyone. But I do feel like they were more stuck on certain gender roles. Like when my son was born, they kind of side eyed him playing with a doll and things like that, wanting a kitchen set, which is surprising because my dad was a chef, but they were like, oh, those are for girls and, things like that. But they were definitely disciplined. Well, my dad was more of the disciplinarian, where my mom wasn't so much. So a lot of when we wanted to do things or things like that, I was always checking in with dad first. So he did really make a lot of those kind of judgments and decisions and things like that. And so funny, when I met Moses, the first time I saw his parents, we were watching a movie and they were like holding hands and they were cuddled together. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I thought it was like a facade or something because they had company over. And so, we were dating too. He'd like get close and affectionate. And I'm like, not in public. I mean, not like he was trying to do anything, I'm just so used to the distance. And so it took me time to really warm up to that idea because that was foreign to me. In our house, we didn't see that. My parents really didn't hold hands. They didn't kiss in public or in front of us even. And so Moses, which I'm so grateful for, is he was like, hey, our kids need to know what a healthy relationship looks like. Like kissing you is not necessarily always a sexual thing. We need to do these things so that our kids know what a healthy relationship looks like. And so Over time, I've warmed up to that, and I agree. I agree that yes, the kids should see us affectionate, even though that's not what I grew up with. So, and I learned later that that's how his parents just are, and that it's normal for
So it
them,
hasn't stopped.
And
Yeah.
so, no, it hasn't stopped. They're still that way, probably even more so than we are. And I do say too, I'm glad that his parents didn't follow those. And his family's the Latino stereotype of the way men and women work, because like we'll go to family gatherings and the wives will be making everybody's plate, their husband's plates while they're sitting down. And I'm like, getting my own plate, feeding myself. No, sometimes I
have to
will.
fend for myself.
But like in our house, he does. But we do things 50-50. It's a give and take. And so for me, it would have been difficult to be like the submissive one, the one that's taking care of the kids all the, I mean, we take turns with that. Actually Moses for a long time stayed home and was a stay-at-home dad and took care of the kids. So he knows what it's like to be super involved. He's a very involved dad. And I appreciate that, and not feeling like all those chores, responsibilities fall on me.
Yeah. Well, you guys sound like both your parents have some different styles, but what you had in common, that your parents, they were lasting and sounds like loving marriages.
I just want to say though, your kids are getting to be the teenagers. They love rolling the eyes. Like Moses, just chase Chaka around the kitchen. I do that with Tara, and the kids are like, "Dad, can you just stop? It's so embarrassing." So there can be some fun part about the affection of just torturing the teenagers.
Yeah, they'll just look at us sometimes and just give us the look,
Well, I don't do it to torture them. Chaka does. She'll keep egging them on. I just, they're background noise to me. I just tell my daughter, if you don't like it, then leave. Because that's what my son does. He doesn't make a comment. He'll just go upstairs.
Yeah. We know. David's quiet about it, but his actions show.
But it's so true of how our kids learn through what they observe, even more than what we tell them. Mm-hmm. And that you both are being intentional in terms of how are we modeling, not just telling them what communication, intimacy, closeness is, but modeling it. Super important. So exciting.
So given your background too, then were you both, it sounds you met as high school sweethearts. Were you already thinking about finding a lifetime commitment when you were that young, or did it just happen? What did you think about marriage?
Probably. I probably was. I knew as a young girl that I wanted to get married and have children, not necessarily at a very young age or anything, but being a mom was like one of the top, I knew for sure I wanted to have a family. And
at a very young age.
Well, I knew at a very young age. I did get married at a very young age. Which part was for me, I guess, yes, I'm the one that probably pursued the idea of engagement and marriage more, because I'm like, we've been together for 4 years now. Like, this is the next step. And he was he was like, we can wait. Like, even with kids, he wanted to wait till we were 30. And I'm like, I want to be done by the time we're 30. And so, yeah. Wait, I'm like, what was the question?
Yeah, no, that was good. But yeah, tell us how it did start. Like, how did you guys meet?
So we met in high school, and I noticed, I guess Moses knew me before I knew him, or knew of me. I noticed him, and during lunch hour, I'll never forget, he was standing up at a table wearing this like bright neon orange, yellow ombre shirt with like Asian writing on it. And I just looked and I'm like, who is that? He just caught my eye, and I thought he was very attractive. And one of the people at the table, like, oh, that's Moses. And I was like, oh, who's Moses? And surprisingly, we had some of the same friends. We just never hung out together, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, talking to a mutual friend, like, can you find out, like, is he with anybody? Like, is he dating anyone? Or like, trying to just put the buzz in his ear. And then one day, this was so random. I normally would never do such a thing, but we had like the Sadie Hawkins or the turnabout dance where the girls asked the guys.
Yeah.
And my date, he canceled like last kind of minute. So I'm like, asked a friend, like, can you ask Moses, like, if I asked, would he go? And my friend came back and he's like, yes, he said he would. So I'm like, okay. I got the school directory, called him up, never had a conversation with him in my life at this point. and just he answered the phone, and I was like, "Hi, this is Chaka. I don't know how well, if you know me much or not, but I was wondering if you'd go to this dance with me." Assuming he was going to say yes because our friend said yes, and then he's like, "Oh, I already have a date
Oh
tomorrow." And I was
Oh,
like, "Oh my God, no." So it was like very short conversation. And come to find out he had a date, but I guess he didn't realize that his friend was really asking, like, he was like, "Yeah, I would go with her, but like I can't go
but I
with her because I'm
can't.
with
Oh
I
no.
have
Useful
another
piece
date,
of
like a friend."
information there.
Very, exactly. I don't think he knew I was gonna call. And then at that moment, do you want to tell him what you thought when I asked?
So my plans ultimately ended up falling through, but I just thought I felt like a backup. I
oh,
Ah.
didn't, like I was plan B or desperation.
Yeah.
I don't think she told me that uh, I think my friend was the one that told me that, her date had also
yeah, fell through.
or
Yeah.
whatnot.
But then when
Yeah.
I got to the dance and I'm like, didn't see him, and I'm like, this jerk, like he lied. He could have just said he didn't want to go. I guess his date canceled last minute. And then it was at that point we started kind of talking when he realized that no, I really was interested in him, not just because my date canceled. And so it kind of took off from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once she made first contact, you were interested right away as well, Moses?
I mean, I think I noticed her my freshman year, but when I went into high school, I was the one I started to go through my puberty probably my junior year. Yeah, because that's when you noticed me.
Yeah.
Your junior year.
Yeah.
I was my senior year, his junior year, because he was a lot shorter. Like he was tall at this point. I was like, oh, who's
Well, I just started growing my junior year. I actually didn't stop growing until my
early 20s?
early 20s.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I was really short freshman, sophomore, and then going into my junior year, I started to hit my growth spurt,
Yep.
and then by that time, uh, I'll say my confidence and kind of had also a big head in my junior year.
Yeah. You were being noticed, and it's just
With
like,
me, yeah, but I will say, like, I've never seen myself as like, like a real attractive person. I think, um, what it's my personality.
yeah,
I've always liked meeting people, and I just like to make people laugh. I think that's, not to sound, conceited or anything, but I think I'm charismatic. Like I like to listen to people's experiences and just have relationships, build rapport,
yeah.
whatnot. And I think that's why I started to, you know, um, start to make a lot more friends. But with that said, I was also not going to class either. I had like 3 lunch periods. I was also doing things I shouldn't have been doing. I should have been focusing at school. I was just focusing on the social.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think his lunch period was the lunch period that I had.
No, it wasn't.
No, you're
So
just,
that was the other thing. In school, I was like the goody good. My day that I ditched school was senior ditch day. Like I am such a rule follower. And so he was kind of like the bad boy, not bad boy, but
No,
like class clown. He was very funny and stuff.
not
And
even that. I just didn't in school, and it wasn't working.
yeah,
There's other reasons why, but
yeah. School wasn't for
um,
you.
it wasn't. It's just you know, uh, the way that things were being taught back then. I
Yeah.
guess it wasn't engaging for me.
Yep.
I will
Yeah,
focus
no,
like history and
still
things
that
that I
way.
really found interesting.
Yeah.
I did great,
Yeah.
but math and like English and things like that, out of the book, I had very I could not concentrate. I
Yeah.
just get easily distracted. But yeah, but back to, he just noticed me then because at that time I just I was taller. I had slimmed down. I wasn't as husky.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been like skinny, but
Yeah.
my qualities and my style had changed.
Yeah. So I have
But
I find it an interesting question because culturally in the U.S. here, there's this kind of you're looking for the one, the person that's going to complete you, the other half. Do you guys think that way, or how do you think about this idea of marriage and looking for the other to complete? Like you're a high school kid, so I'm sure you weren't thinking about that at that time.
No, but it's the idea of, is there a soulmate? Is there like the one person you're supposed to find? Do you guys believe
That out
that's
of
a
8
thing?
billion people, you found each other and you're the only ones for each other.
No, I think we need to be complete on their own, like we complement each other very well is
I
how
like
I
that.
feel about it. And so would it be difficult if I didn't have him here? Yes, now knowing the life that we've created, because we talk about, at least I talk about that, like death and things like that and how that would affect us and how we would move on. But I was also an independent person before then, and I like to do things on my own and stuff like that. So I don't feel like I needed a man or another person to complete me per se. But I look back and, I had dated other people, and there were times where we had kind of broken up a little bit and saw other people and managed to find our way back together. And I just realized like he has all these these characteristics that I love and so family oriented, which was really important to me. So there was a period where we did break up because for me growing up, my parents pushed education in school and there was really no other choice but to go to college. And, they sent out, all three of us girls went to college and Moses, like, he did go to COD for a little bit and then he like stopped going. And I was like, no, you need to finish your education. And so for a while I was like, is this the most important thing? Like, no, because for a while it was a bit of tension there when he wasn't completing it. Cause I'm like, our children, we got to push education. This is what, my mom was, finished school, started working on her doctoral and things. And so it was just important to me at that time. But then I look back at the other qualities. I'm like, but he loves me. He sees me as an equal and all these other things. And I realized like that's actually more important than the educational piece. And so I don't know, I just feel like we just complement each other and balance each other well. Cause I used to be really uptight and things like that. And he helps to, I mean, I've changed.
I just want to say Moses is smiling, nodding his head, but being very cautious.
No, we all change. I mean, no one's the same.
Yeah, so we're different people. We grew up, we kind of grew up together because we're not the same people that we were. But I do attribute a lot of that to Moses too. Like, okay, I can I can relax a little bit. He really helps to calm me down and things like that. And so for me, I don't know, maybe if he weren't here, maybe there would have been somebody else. But I'm just happy with the relationship that we have and nourishing that relationship. So
yeah,
that's my long opinion.
How about for you, Moses, this idea of the one?
That and going actually back to, because you had also asked about marriage, back to that question, if you don't mind. In high school, marriage was not on my mind at all. So that will go hand in hand with finding the one. I to this day, I don't believe in like the one. I just feel like you find someone that you can live your life with. She doesn't check all the boxes because I don't believe that there's someone that checks all the boxes.
Yep.
But she checked enough of them and it works.
Yeah.
But being a dad and being a husband was never, she had touched on it. It was never something that I caught myself doing.
Yeah.
What changed all that was ultimately it was Chaka.
Yeah.
I think I probably dated around more than you did, right?
Yeah. My parents were fairly strict, so there wasn't really much dating for a while.
Yeah.
And then once I was allowed to date, it's like, it's almost like when you can't do it, you want to do it. And then I just didn't date a lot really. So
I had dated around and I'm always constantly meeting people, and there came a point where I could even say right now we got married because of her. I was never raised when I think of marriage, I do believe it's rooted in religion. And I've never been a religious person. I could probably see myself as just being a life partner and not actually have the title of marriage. And I think it would still work. but I also understood how important it was for Shaka. Um, but since being married, I understand the value of like being face to face with someone and saying your vows and wanting to honor those vows. Not just say it to say it, but really live up to them and work hard to keep it going.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, in high school that was never, or even when we started to date, I she was definitely wanting to get married. I wasn't ready for it. I thought I was still too young
Yeah.
for it. Um, and then to your second question was, what was it again?
It was the one you kind of put them.
The
You
one,
answered them
if you're
both
the one.
The one.
together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I I don't ever feel secure. Not that I worry that she would leave me, but I know that if I become complacent and just feel like I'm secure in my spot, that things could go easily downhill.
Yeah.
The things that she found me attractive, I have to continue to do those things. I just can't. It's like with any other job, just because you've cleaned it once, it's not going to stay clean forever. You constantly have to keep, even with the flower, you have to keep watering it, maintaining it. It's how I feel. Yeah, I still don't believe in the one. I just feel like you find someone that you can see yourself living with, and you just have to continue to work at it.
Yeah, that's really,
That's incredible.
really well said and thoughtful. I'm curious about, so your son is getting to the age you were when you guys met, thinking about these kids that are thinking about marriage. He may or may not be thinking about marriage, but as a kind of as newlyweds, when you're first married, still young, what were your dreams, expectations for this kind of committed relationship you're in?
I go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be honest, I had no dreams at that age.
I
Uh,
should say we got married at 21 and 22. So we were still like looking back to me, that sounds so crazy. Because I look at my younger sisters when they were that age, and I'm like, who gets married so young? So we were still babies, I feel. But
yes, but at that age though, Shaka did have he had a game plan for life. Shaka's always been someone who planned big. I've never been that way. I've always been go with the flow at 7 in the morning, and I live my life a day at a time.
Yep.
Because tomorrow is never promised to anybody. But I've also have learned then to start looking at the big picture, because this is a life that I want to spend with her. We have to have goals that we have to work for. But for the longest time, I was just, playing it fast and loose. He has shown me a different aspect to life, that planning for something and accomplishing it, there's great reward in that. And we've been able to do that, kids, with our home, just big milestones like that. It is something that, yeah, it can never be taken away. Accomplishing something like that is amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like you both had an influence on each other. It sounds similar to our kind of.
Yeah, we also married. Tara was 22. She was a baby when I married her. I'm so much older,
Yeah,
6 months older,
right.
but much more mature.
Right.
yes.
Yeah. What about you, Shaka? You're the planner in the
Yeah.
couple.
So Moses, no, yeah.
What was your big
And
dream?
our family, my family were my mom specifically is like very goal oriented and like setting your SMART goals and all these things. And so for me, I just knew when I felt like he was the one or the person that I felt like I wanted to be with, I was like, okay, I know, like I've dated some other people, in college, we kind of spent some time apart. I saw other people and I'm like, nope, this is who I want to spend my time with. And, you know, in our family, it was being my family's a little more religious, and was kind of like, you guys are getting married before you move in together, right? And we didn't do things that traditional way. We did move in a little before we got married. But for sure, before we had kids and things like that, I'm like, I knew I wanted to start a family fairly young. So I'm like, what's holding you back? Like, is there I just knew that I wanted to have kids, starting fairly young, probably we had our first at 25, and that was like when I would wanted to have my first child by probably, because other than that, I felt like I was
No,
getting,
you would have
I would have been okay
earlier.
earlier. I would have been okay earlier. But he was like, let's wait, let's travel, let's do all these things. And I'm like, we've done some of these things. And like, why wait? I was always worried too about the older I get, like the quality of my embryos and all those things. And so for me, it was about establishing our family and things like that, and raising our kids. And I don't know. I even was thinking, I jokingly with my kids talk about the grandkids and like, I'm going to be the first one, so like, I really think out there,
Yeah, you look at the
more
really big
long-term.
picture.
But that's
Yeah.
like,
it's way out there and just living it right now.
yeah. Can you think about being a grandpa? Is that on your radar screen there, Moses?
Well, it is. So those are the things that I've learned from Chaka.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually was it a month ago or 2 months ago when Jabin had the fake baby for high school?
Oh yes, he was taking a childhood development class. So last semester or last quarter, he had to bring a baby home.
Oh.
And so I was like, oh, woo, let's see how you do. I was like, I hope this baby cries a lot and like shows you how difficult, and the baby was going off quite often. We would hear it,
They've scaled back on the difficulty. Now it's just over the weekend.
Yeah, they don't have to take it to class or anything like
a
that.
semester. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But there was he came out to me, he's like, Dad, can you watch the baby? I have to take a shower. So I'm like, sure. So I'm taking care of the baby. And, at that time, I'm just like, if it were to happen,
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it because, with my son, when he was born, I was working a lot. So I really didn't get to spend that father-son at that baby age.
Mm-hmm.
It was really close to mom. My daughter, luckily I was able to be home. Like Chaka said, I was a stay-at-home dad. So our relationship is not that my relationship with my son is different. It is. You have different relationships with people, but she's definitely a lot closer than my son is. But I'm like, it would be awesome to have grandkids running around. I know it's weird for me to say it now, at being close to 40.
we can wait wait a little while.
Not a big rush.
But there's
not in a big rush.
They know that.
Looking
forward to it though.
Yeah, and there's something helpful. I think back, Moses, even about taking vows, of having a big picture and something that's not about just me, but there's something bigger. Being a grandparent's about something bigger. Marriage, kind of what I'm hearing you both say, it's about something bigger. You're both in it, and you're complete in it as individuals, and yet you're building something that we call marriage together, a life together. And that perspective kind of changes and makes the crazy moments or the painful moments or the difficult moments more doable. And we kind of would like to ask about some difficult moments.
Yeah, 18 years of marriage, you can't have not had some hard times too, right?
I know Moses is easygoing, but I'm sure there's still been times when there's been challenges. And for us, it's like the information of what's been most helpful to navigate those difficult times. If you could tell us a story.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be, you don't have to think of something specific right away, but the times that have been hard, what comes to mind first of all that's been helpful for you in getting through those things?
Yeah, I guess I can start. I think one of the biggest ones that we've always talked, Moses is one where he doesn't like to go to bed upset or angry. Like he wants to talk through it and everything like that before we move on. And I'm just like, I need to sleep on it and then, think about it. But the times I can think of most is like, we've always said we've got to be open with our communication. So even if it may feel hurtful, like just recently, I've been working really crazy hours and not home a lot. And Moses was like, and he also, he picked up a part-time job. So, and it was more for him, he's such a social person and his day job was staying home all the time. And so he needed to get out. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I've been added even more to my plate. And we have kids, we have to be home with some, they can't be here by themselves all the time. And so he just, said, hey, babe, like, I know you love your work, but you're clients seem to be taking first priority right now. Our relationship is sitting on the back burner. We hadn't had a date. We hadn't had time alone or together, and things like that. And so for me, it's hurt, it was hurtful to hear that he felt like I wasn't giving him attention. Moses is more of like, his love language is more like affectionate and touch and things like that, and things like that. And I'm more words of affirmation. And so, he likes that quality time and time together. And I didn't have the energy at the time, and so it was hard to hear, but he brought it up and we've addressed it since then. And so, yes, there was crying on my end and it was difficult, but it's more of like hearing that there was something wrong, like I was causing him pain or, whatnot, and him not being happy, feeling like he wasn't happy with me. But we have to have those conversations. And so, instead of just going around or just not talking about it, we do. So he's really good about that. Me, sometimes I hold things in. I just remember when I was pregnant with Layla. Layla was not planned. She was a surprise, and he was working a lot of that was at that time he was working a lot of hours, and then he liked the game, and I was just overwhelmed. Like, we're bringing another baby, and I barely can handle one, and so just like literally hyperventilating, crying, like, and at that point he completely changed. I mean, that was a big changing point, I feel, where he realized, okay, there's a problem. He's very much want to fix it, like a fixer. And just communicating my concerns and my fears and things like that. And so it was a difficult conversation, but we had it. And yeah, I get it. So I think communication for us is just a big thing. So I'd say
I think those are two, I will say, are so far, knock on wood, we haven't had to deal with, we've had adversity, but not where, our parents are getting to an age where, where all parents get up there, where the end of life is coming up, right? And I've seen that can take away from a marriage. And we haven't really, or with other families, it's unfortunate, the loss of a child, or we haven't had to, we've had problems, but not where I can say they're life changing, except those two that Chaka touched on. But I would say in the beginning of our marriage, Chaka was taking a chance on me. I wasn't someone who, again, I didn't have goals. I did have strong feelings for her, and I wanted to be with her, but as she touched base on, my priorities just, they weren't there. So in the beginning, and her dad did not like me. And then I get it. I didn't. I really, if you looked at me back then, I had nothing going for myself. So I kind of felt like I had to prove something to everyone. I don't like hurting the people that are close to me. So in the beginning of our relationship, and even now, I just always kind of feel like I have to give it my all. So she knows that she chose the right one, that I'm not someone that wasn't going anywhere. Even though I didn't have dreams, I felt like I was just going to accomplish good things in life. But yeah, with my daughter, I would say that was definitely early on, that was a big point, because yes, I would work long hours, sometimes 70, 80 hours a week. And I would come home and I'm like, I needed the game to unwind. But I would walk in and she would have both the kids, or she, Javen.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was before then, but she was cooking, cleaning, and I would justify it as, well, I've been working 80 hours and you've been only working 40, subconsciously, whatever. But when she had that breakdown, I didn't realize it, but she was definitely really, there's a lot of pain there, a lot of animosity that I just was not, I will say I was just too stupid to I needed a slap in the face, and that was a slap in the face. And, I vowed that it would never be like that ever again.
Yeah. From then on, I said, okay, if anything's bothering me, we need to talk about it sooner than later.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that was hormonal too, I was like early pregnant, but just, if we have an issue, we address it early on versus letting it,
Yeah, I mean, I want to say hormone. It needed to be said. Your
no, it
hormones,
did.
yeah, it needed to be said.
It did. But we also early on said that our marriage, comes before the children even. Like we need to have a strong foundation and have a happy, like to have a good household to raise our children in. So we try. I mean, obviously kids, sometimes things do come first, but we always in the background are like, okay, we need to plan a date night. We need to do this, or just spending some time together. Like he works in the basement, I'll come down here and hang out and things like that. Because, if we fall apart, then how does that affect our children? So we just make it a point to just really have open communication, I think is really the main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's hard because for couples in general, there's just an assumption of if we're so close, you should just know what I need, or you should kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And Moses,
After all these years, sometimes you feel that way.
It took me a while to realize you're not a mind reader.
Right, and
Yeah.
and it's not Moses. I think about you like saying about being clueless or not being aware of that. I live in that space too of like. I'll take you at your word. If you don't bring it up, I'll just assume everything's okay, which is a problem on my part. I'm not curious enough, but there's that kind of, we need to be curious about each other and
ask the question. Yeah.
and talk through it. I totally agree with that. And it's scary. I think the reason we don't do it, it's a little bit scary to find out what exactly are you thinking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You never know what answer you're going to get.
I might not want to know.
Oh, is that going to be something I'm going to have to work on? Oh, shoot.
Yeah. No, it's true. Because then, it's hard to, especially if it's something negative or something that we need to, our partner feels that we need to work on. It's like, well, am I not doing a good enough job? Like I go inside and start thinking of all these negative things. And sometimes it's not as big of a deal as what I think, but I start to think like, oh, how do I change this? What am I going to do? And I'm such a planner. So now I'm like, okay, I need to change my schedule. Now what do I need to do? What do we, so.
Well, it sounds like you guys have met in the middle a lot, and we love your story. And our problem is always time, because we'd love another full hour with you. But we
oh
want.
My God, I didn't realize the time.
No,
it goes
we could
fast.
honestly, we have so many more things we'd love to hear about you. In fact,
we might have
to have you back, because I have yes. But we would love to ask you kind of what is the main thing, if you had to give advice to other couples that are at the very beginning stages or just starting to think about getting married, how would you sum up your advice after your years of learning together? What would be your best thing to pass along?
Me personally, I know, and I've told people, I don't try to give. I mean, I do try to give advice, but what works for us doesn't work for everybody, and what works for other people doesn't work for us. I just like to say, definitely, first and foremost, there needs.
I'm sorry, it cut out there a minute. There needs to be
respect.
Respect, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest. That's like your foundation. You have to have respect for each other as an equal, and then communication, and then from there you just have to find out what works for each other. What works for Chaka and I know doesn't work for everybody. That's how I was just raised: respect and communication. So far, it's been working for us pretty well.
That sounds like a good foundation. Chaka, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And just also making each other a priority and not just becoming complacent. So, even after all these years, marriages still work. You can't just, become complacent. And so we have to find that time, for each other, which sometimes even now is still difficult. It doesn't necessarily have to be going on a date all the time. It could just be going to bed at the same time together and just chatting and, talking about how the day and stuff went and things like that. But just being open as well. We came from different backgrounds. And so it was a lot of learning, and he's really close to his extended family and stuff. And so that I didn't have that growing up. So that brought a different dynamic, but just, I guess, being open to new things too. So
yeah.
That's a good one. Open-mindedness.
A compromise
Yeah,
too.
there has to
Compromise.
be give and take. You cannot be stubborn
Well, you
well,
can be stubborn, but
yeah.
but definitely a balance. It can't always go one way
Yeah.
or one person's way. We don't always agree on everything,
No.
Even with raising the kids, we kind of have to talk it through and things like that, but just finding that compromise. And we always have said the kids have caught some arguments, but we always have agreed like, hey, if we disagree with something, let's not do that so much in front of the kids, like normal disagreements. But if it's really hot and heavy, like things that we need to talk about, we don't put that on the children either, So
they need to see how you navigate conflict, but yet the kind of big messages need to be a single message coming from both of you, even if there's been times before that you didn't agree. When you talk with them in the resolution, it's the same message. The other thing I noticed just kind of watching you interact with each other is playfulness. That what works for you both with all that, with communication, respect, compromise, there's a playfulness that's just palpable. I can feel it coming through. And
that's why we wanted to spend time with you. Because I see a lot of similarities actually, because our marriage is a lot like that too. Unfortunately, this is not going to be video podcast, so people don't get to see this interaction, but I'm the planner. I was kind of the uptight one. David brought a lot of playfulness to our relationship, and that's what made me decide like, hey, this guy might be fun to live with for the rest of my life. Things are a little lighter, and there's, so that bringing those things together. And I love that, Moses, you said you found some value in Chaka's way of looking at things too. And you guys kind of have met in the middle with some shared values, and it seems to be working really well. We love seeing you guys together.
To the playfulness part, see, and then I needed Chaka to know when to act like an adult.
That's right.
There'll be times where you shouldn't be playful and acting like a kid. You have to be an adult.
What? That's a thing?
I know. I didn't know that either. And then one day I realized, hey, if you're in court, you shouldn't be,
Yeah, things like that.
There are moments.
Yeah. Well, thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, what a ride.
We hope you'll get more information about everything we talked about today on our show notes page on the website.
I was going to say, where could we find the show notes page?
WithYouPodcast.com.
Awesome.
And also, while you're at it, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and let us know what you're thinking.
Can we ask that it's only good reviews?
You can ask anything you want.
Okay, leave good reviews. We would love to hear from you and respond. So
thanks for listening.
See you next time.